Patty Lawler, and thank you for watching. Our guest today really needs no introduction. The man, the name, Charlie Volpe or Charles Volpe, is very well known, not just in our area, but across the Commonwealth and beyond. He is a man of commitment, achievement, and reputation. So I could spend the whole half hour talking about what he's achieved and what he was committed to and so many other things, but then we wouldn't have an interview. So straight away, I want to thank Chuck Volpe for coming.
My pleasure,
being
Patty.
a guest on ECTV. This is big. This is huge for us.
It's
so thank
pleasure
you.
For me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to start with at the beginning. You grew up in this area.
Born and raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I did not leave the area really until I was 22 years old.
Okay.
I left with a young wife in tow, headed to Pittsburgh, where the following fall I was going to start my first year of law school.
Wow.
And but from that point forward, that's where Pittsburgh entered my life. But for 22 years, born and raised, a proud graduate of the University of Scranton.
How beautiful. Now, I want to just go, I read this in the Morning Call.
Okay.
A fellow did a nice article about you, and it concerns your kitchen table talk with your dad in 1988. Can you share with the viewers that conversation?
Yes, I will. Some of it was private, but what I can share is that my dad knew he was going to die. Oh. You know, he had been diagnosed with stage 4 advanced lung cancer, and he knew he was going to, for himself and for his family that loved him, he was going to fight it like the Dickens, and he did. Yeah. But he also told me, he said, Chuck, I know the end result here. My dad was in the insurance business, had been an old Metropolitan Life salesman back when he was a young man, when I was just a baby. So he knew life mortality tables, and he knew that lung cancer, stage 4, 30-some years ago, was pretty much a death sentence. So, yeah, we had a very candid talk about life. And
he challenged you. He had said, if I remember the article correctly, that he challenged you, and he said, you know, I'm paraphrasing now, to those that have been given a lot is expected. Don't squander it.
Exactly what. You got it correct, exactly, almost. So, yeah, to those who much has been given, much is expected.
Yes. And you've lived that way.
I have.
Yes.
Again, and some of what I can share, some is too personal, but what I can share is that one of the things he felt gratified about, that even though his life was going to be cut short at the peak of the performance, unfortunately not after it, that at least he took solace in he had done so much. He had lived life to the fullest.
Yes.
And
he started out selling tires.
Started out selling tires. Then he became, as I said, a life agent at the old Glen Alden building, which is now a University of Scranton building on Jefferson Avenue, and selling life insurance. And I think it was 1962, he formed his own agency, brokerage house, and then got into the insurance business.
He sounded, in the article, he sounded like such an inspiration. And I couldn't help but think, as I'm preparing for this interview with you, that boy, you didn't disappoint your dad.
Well, thank you.
You didn't disappoint him. You're such a success, and so straight across the board with your
You're too kind.
No, with your law degree, you took the business that was left to you, and you didn't squander it.
No.
You grew it. You made it even more impressive, which is so beautiful, because so many, maybe in your circumstance, they lose the business. Right. They end up, bartending.
Yeah.
But you were truly, he must be so very proud.
Well, thank you.
Before we leave this segment, I want to ask you, do you have any advice for a young person that might be watching, or someone that is changing career paths? What makes you successful in business? Can you give, just one or two sentences on that?
Well, I think, fundamental first principles. You start with the idea. I used to have a picture in my office. It was actually a phrase attributed to Confucius, 2,000 years ago or so, and the phrase was, translated from Mandarin to U.S. was, Choose a job you love, and you will never work a day in your life.
That's right.
And I feel that way. And I
Yes.
think the best advice for you to excel in anything, you have to be in something you like doing, and hopefully something that gives you satisfaction relative to your skill set and your talents. I like to quote, if I can, I was in the Jesuit Honors Program, so I had a lot of classical Jesuit training.
Yes.
So quote, I believe it was Aristotle, the ancient Greeks, who defined happiness. And that's, quote, using your powers along lines of excellence.
Yes.
John F. Kennedy in his press conferences repeated that as, you know, they were asking him how he's enjoying the job as president. And he said, well, I find there's some happiness, and then he quoted that definition. So start there. I mean, because then it's not a drudgery. It's not a job. It's not something you're doing just to get by and earn a paycheck and pay the rent.
Yeah.
You're actually doing something. So if you love it and you have an aptitude for it, and then it's just hard work and just enjoying what you do.
Yes. So, of course, you have the law degree, you grow the insurance business, you become very, very successful. You were exposed to political atmosphere. Your dad was an elected official.
House of Representatives of Pennsylvania.
So it was just natural that you would, I don't want to use the word, but stumble into the political arena. And so, which I found pretty surprising when I learned that. And then you strike for governor. You go after governor. Tell us what that decision was like. Was it a hard decision?
No, and like I guess the best ones you make in your life, it just kind of happened. Some people say that the Lord spoke to them, and even though I believe in the Lord and all that, and I'm a Catholic, the Lord didn't speak to me.
Yes,
I just came into the idea that youth should not be a barrier to public service. And some of the best leaders that we've had, both Democrat and Republican. For example, Barack Obama was one of the youngest presidents of the United States, Democrat.
Yeah.
John Kennedy, when he was elected, was, in fact, the youngest, 42.
Yes.
And so at the time I was announcing, I was like 32 or 33 at the time, qualified by the Constitution to run for governor, so I was old enough. And one of the things I learned at that kitchen table from my dad is don't put off anything you really want to do for tomorrow, because we're all day to day.
Absolutely.
As he found out the hard way.
Good advice. Now, just, I'm kind of rapid fire because there is so much about you that is so exciting that I want the viewers to hear. So you make the decision, and it helped me refresh my mind. It was in the primary.
It was. I ran in a Democratic primary. There were
a crowded field.
About 8. I think the final results were, I think I finished, I want to say 4th or 5th, right in the middle, basically. I could have been higher, but my campaign manager and my political consultants, who are from Washington, they do presidential campaigns. They were really good.
Yeah.
In fact, quick sidebar, even though I lost the race, when they did a recap of the primary, the Philadelphia Inquirer, my commercials were voted the best in the state. And that's 5 Republicans and 8 Democrats, so out of 12 or 13 candidates. But at any rate, getting back to the point, they said to me that, Chuck, you can't win at this point. We can't, there's no way to get there. And so basically, instead of spending any more of my own money, which were millions, and other people's money,
I'm sure.
And people that had loaned money, I basically scaled down my television, gave money back to people at the end because I couldn't win. And that probably cost me a chance for a 3rd place finish. But at the point I couldn't, it was about first. It didn't matter after that.
I can't even imagine running for governor. You're going straight across the Commonwealth to Juniata County, to Philadelphia, big city, Harrisburg, over to Altoona, down to Scranton, up
Sharon, Hermitage, the Ohio State border, Northwest PA, Erie, of course.
So vast.
Yeah, it
so
is.
how was the campaign? Did you have a ground team?
Of course. We had offices all over the state. My main headquarters was on Brookline Street in the city of Pittsburgh. I actually ran with Allegheny County under my name. Since at that point I kind of had, like even today, almost a dual citizenship. I chose that because I was running at a time when our governor, Robert P. Casey, was finishing up his 2nd term.
Yes.
And he was from Scranton in Lackawanna County, so the state was not going to elect back-to-back Scranton. So I thought I would have at least a chance.
That was wise, yeah.
I had Allegheny County under my name, so that's why.
So when you're picking staff, I think the viewer will find this interesting. What qualities are you looking for I'm going to use this term, the henchmen, the ones that report to you?
You mean political staff?
Yes.
Okay, well, the first thing is actually I didn't pick my staff. What I picked were 2 or 3 key people that I interviewed and I hired at the top of the tree, if you will. The first was a political consultant, media consultant. Because when you run statewide in a state as big as Pennsylvania, you're not knocking on doors. You're not doing mailers and mailboxes and yard signs. It's a statewide race. So
that's right.
You need to do a media race. You need to get known in television, in your messaging, branding, if you will, is important. I had one of the best in the country. It was Trippy McMahon and Squire, Steve McMahon specifically. By the way, Steve went on to run presidential, gubernatorial, U.S. Senate races. He was also a regular guest of Chris Matthews on Crossfire. So he went on to a career, still does a lot of political
you don't suffer fools easily.
No.
I mean, it's either that maybe a key that you are so very successful is you can judge character and you want the best. And
he was.
Right.
And there were 2 others. There was my head finance person to raise money, although the candidate raises it, the structure of the finance committee. Yes. And then the third component, and again critical, is the campaign manager who actually runs the offices. And those 3 hire the staff.
Okay.
Once I've picked them and I'm comfortable with what their vision is and their structures are, they staff it. The candidate usually doesn't. And
you trust.
Yes.
So how, I watched your candidacy. I voted for you in that election. You ran as a young man.
Yeah, 33.
And you were not going to accept money from PAC or special interests.
None. Correct.
So I always
have never in all my
yes. I always thought that not to be judgmental, a little seedy. Yeah. You know, if you have somebody giving you $250,000 just because he likes your tie. Tell me about. Can you explain to the viewer what is PAC money? I think a lot of viewers, when they hear that, they think it's a Boy Scout troop.
It's special interest money, Patty. Basically, they form PACs as a legal means to contribute. Look, just the reality of it is, I'm not going to suggest that public officials that take PAC money are somehow corrupted. That would be unfair, and it's not true. Most are good and have integrity, although not all are. Right. But here's the thing. My feeling is, just in my terms of my moral code, if someone helps you get elected to that extent, I'm talking large, big dollar contributions, it's pretty hard to tell them no on key issues you may feel differently about. And since I was going to be independent and spent a lot of my own money, I wanted to be able to make decisions based on my education, my experience, and my moral code. And not have to do things, well, hey, you wouldn't be here if I didn't give you that $2 million check. So that's why I did it. And I think, look, in a broader sense, one of the biggest problems, the reason that Trump called Washington, and I can say Harrisburg, the swamp, is because it was. And what he meant by that, and it stuck. It stuck back against Hillary 4 years ago.
That's right.
Was that the insidious control that these groups have. A good, honest piece of legislation, Patty, that has the right intent and purpose for people to help them. Right. By the time that legislation can get through the House and then the Senate and get signed into law, every little nibbler in the sea, lawyer, lobbyist, PAC, will put this word in, put that word in, exempt my group or my constituency, and that's what they get paid a lot of money for. And all of a sudden, something that started out to be good is so watered down, it doesn't do anything.
It's so mangled.
It's exactly.
You can't even recognize it.
That's special interest money.
Right.
That's what it does.
So as a candidate, the governor's race is very impressive. That's why I'm sticking with this. You picked your own platform. In other words, you knew what you wanted to promise the John Q. public, what you thought you could deliver. No one, a strategist, didn't say you want to cater to this group, you want to pander. So I saw this and I thought, I'm going to give him the vote.
Well, thank
you.
As
you go into the campaign, you're at the end, you haven't slept in 3 weeks, you haven't eaten in 4 weeks.
It was, I looked flat out, didn't see a lot of my family.
Yes.
So, yeah.
The negativity, you sit down for an interview, you, in good faith, with goodwill, you read the account, it's just a smidgen correct. And the rest of it is all rumor and innuendo. So how do you
even
handle that negativity?
distortion. It's even beyond innuendo. They flat out will extrapolate under the First Amendment. They're technically allowed to, under political speech is protected, as you know.
Yes.
They can kind of take one little thing and turn it into something that's flat out not true.
Yes.
Like, for example, let me give a quick example in a recent election. My good friend, U.S. Congressman Matt Cartwright,
Yes.
won a tough race against Jim Bowman.
Very tough.
Well, the Republicans, a lot of this came from, again, special interest money. They were running commercials about him that he was this super rich, that he had a yacht, that he had a jet.
Penthouse.
Well, a penthouse. Right. Well, actually what he had was a Piper prop plane that he flew himself because he likes to fly.
Right.
He had a sailboat, which isn't a yacht. And so they took those little things in the distortion. That's a lie. It's not even, it's not
allowed
innuendo.
to run.
It's allowed to run.
Sure. So how do you keep yourself positive and when you do have when you're up against that?
Well, it's funny, someone asked me that question recently. What I said was, and what I'll tell you, is that you get refreshed from people, Patty.
Yes.
Anybody that runs for high public office, you know, when you see the looks in their eyes, when you understand the difficulties they have and the ways and what you should be running for to address, it's real. And then you just block out the negative stuff. You block out the TV stuff and all that. I mean,
the favorite
it's hard,
part
but you do.
The favorite part of campaigning then is the people, and they're the wind beneath your wings as you go forward.
Very well put.
Now I'm going to change gears a little bit. Okay. So, well, I should stick with this just for one simple question. Do you see running again for an office down the road, or does it ever cross your mind?
Yes, very honestly, and I'll give you a specific. As you're aware, I have a television show. Yes. It runs on Fox Network every Sunday. Thank you.
Very fine.
8 years, believe it or not, it'll be this year as we start it. And I was a very outspoken critic of our governor, Tom Wolf, and what he did with COVID-19 and how he shut down the whole economy. And look, you know, again, not to get too moralistic about it, while I understand the gravity of COVID-19 and we should responsibly protect people from that disease, you know, the other side of the coin is the economy and what was done destroyed lives. Yeah. Like thousands, tens of thousands of small businesses are gone. Yes. Millions of jobs are gone. And if you check the charts, the suicides, overdoses, domestic violence.
The carnage, absolutely.
Carnage. And my point pandemic. Was, don't those death count, those deaths?
Right.
You know, it's only like, well, we got to save, you know, have to save COVID, and we do.
Yeah, of course.
But it has to be done in a responsible way. He didn't. He destroyed our economy. And so because of how outspoken, and people got to hear my opinions, I guess they liked what they heard.
Yes.
So it kind of a wellspring just started.
Beautiful.
And people commenting, calling.
No one deserves it more.
Well thank you. But, so I have thought, and I'm still keeping my options open for 2 years and beyond. Yes. Well, I haven't made a decision.
Okay. I want to touch back then. All of a sudden, to pick up the paper, and Chuck Volpe has this idea that we could reform a county government.
Yes.
We're going to take a three-man county commissioner, and we're going to replace it by, was it a council of commissioners, 9 people?
No, it was.
I forget that.
I think the final number was, well, first of all, most importantly, it was going to be an elected executive called the county executive under Pennsylvania statutory law, like they have in Pittsburgh. Rich Fitzgerald is a good friend of mine. He's the county executive. And then you have a council. Which is the legislative side of it. So you have checks and balances. Yes. In fact, how cities, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Scranton, you have Governor Paige Gephardt Cognetti now as the mayor of Scranton, but she still has to deal with a council, checks and balances. Where the commissioner form of government, there were no checks and balances. The majority closed the door, turn out the lights, whisper to each other what they were going to do, and make those decisions, because they're both the executive branch and the legislative. In all constitutions, Patty, the legislative branch is the appropriator of monies.
Yes.
You know, there was a line, one of my favorite authors, Teddy White, said about describing the relationship to President and Congress. Same principle, though. The President proposes, Congress disposes.
Sure.
So, but that necessary check and balance was lacking.
And I remember this, and I remember being so impressed with you doing your homework, you were so well read, and I had asked Mr. Murray, Leo,
Yes.
about that, and he said, well, the concept actually came, it was done in Pittsburgh.
We used that as a boilerplate. In fact,
The
Rich
boilerplate.
Fitzgerald came to address our media and address our public
Yes.
hearings when I chaired that commission.
But you're not afraid to look at something that was in cement for 25, 30 years, longer?
137 years we've had the commission of
And
Farm and
say,
Government, believe it or not.
let's look at it again.
Right.
If you were a winner in my book, just because you looked at it and you wanted reform. I think in the city now we see the people are uncovering things. For years and years, we're just accepted, and if you have a gas card, why? It's not the people are bad, it's the system. There's no
it's designed
checks and balances.
Exactly. And again, how many people need to go to jail from this area?
It's
thank God
appalling.
for one of the great things about Joe Biden. Scranton is finally getting positive press for something good.
Right.
Usually we get press for being the center of corruption. How many commissioners, mayors go to jail, judges, kids for cash down in Luzerne County.
It's a disgrace.
Right, so the point being, we had just had 2 commissioners of Lackawanna County go to jail, Cordero and Munchak, you remember.
Exactly.
And I thought that one of the reasons they did some of what they were able to do badly was because, again, this lack of oversight, the lack of check and balance.
Yeah. So you have me with oversight.
Yes.
Okay. We're closing up,
Okay.
pretty much. So I just
Half
if I
hour goes
could-
quick.
Well, it does, and I want to pick your brain. You have such a marvelous grasp of everything, whether it's insurance
kind.
or whether it's your ability to be a celebrity on Fox News, and your viewership is creeping up. I'm depending on you to make my viewership creep up. But let me just ask you, paper ballots.
Yes.
What's your feeling about the paper ballot?
Well, let me ask you. Do you mean by paper ballot? Are you asking about
Mail-in. Excuse me.
mail-ins.
Thank you.
I have a more conservative point of view on this, Patty. I'm not particularly a fan of it. I think that it was appropriate for the pandemic. I think with what people were facing with this time, I think it was appropriate. And by all accounts, while there was clearly some hanky-panky, it was not enough to change the outcome. The right man was elected and won. Joe Biden won the election. So, but having said that and going forward, 2 days a year, that's it, 2 days a year, you exercise your patriotic duty by going to vote.
Right.
And I still think that's a system that was not broken and has worked for hundreds of years.
Yes.
And I don't, that's a little bit that we could do as a citizen. People have fought and died for that right.
Well,
and to show up, and say hello to your friends and neighbors and the people that work at the polling place that become your friends,
Yes.
the judges of elections and all that. That's a very simple thing in a democracy to do.
Thank you. I'm right on the page. The whole thing of mail-in and all that, it was the best thing for the pandemic. But I hope we don't make a practice of it. If you can stand in line at Walmart, if you can stand in line,
Of course.
this is big. You're coming out to vote. I wonder if it'll change the number of percentages if you go back to the old way.
Yeah.
The next question is, how about, have you noticed in the last 10 years the partisanship? When you read something or you see it on television, it seems to be meaner than ever. The cartoons, now these are elected officials, whether your pick or my pick. Trump, bare naked, comparing him to the emperor, no clothes. Then you have, him on a spit like a stuffed pig, and poor Mrs. Cummings on the county level. They demonized her with cartoons.
Yes, they do.
Is it really necessary?
No,
we're not kind to each other.
It's systemic. What started out and grew from, we talked about distorted, mean, and cruel campaign commercials to win elections, has gotten to a point in our country and in our state of the level of partisanship, the demonizing to win of your opponent is disgraceful, honestly.
You know what? We're in a climate now with school children where bullying is the big thing.
Sure.
And it is a form of bullying. You know, you open the paper, now you are elected officials, whether, you know, but anyway, the other thing, 10 years from now, do you think we'll have a solid Republican Party, a solid Democratic Party as we do today? Not to undermine the independent or the Green parties, but do you think it'll be the same way, or do you think people are going to go toward independent? And I think, my opinion, humble that it is, I hope we all become moderates. When we get elected, skip your party, no partisanship, go ahead and do what's right for the people. What do you think of?
I think the independent party will grow in this country and in this state. I'll be honest with you, I'm considering it myself.
Yes.
I feel like the Democratic Party, there's almost, I feel like I've been like a dinosaur phased out.
Yeah.
I like to quote Ronald Reagan. He was famously asked, is in the pantheon of Republican presidents that he was, you know, he was asked why he switched, a longtime Democrat. He was a union president.
Right, that's
and he
correct.
said, well, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me.
Right.
So I can't answer. I think there will be a fundamental change in both parties.
Yes.
We could end up with a third party, whether it's independent or the like. I just think we're at the precipice now. And what happens over the next 2 and 4 years could determine, and that'll honestly determine what I do.
Okay.
As we see.
As we go forward, the biggest challenge facing the American people going into 2021, you have to give me one sentence, because can you believe it? We've run out of time.
I do know.
I wanted to say, you know, and show that the Volpe report is Sunday at 10:30. I saw
Sunday
it
on Fox
last
56.
Sunday. Tim DeVoe, am I saying his name correctly? DeVore.
Yeah.
Fabulous. It's just fabulous. And the host, producer, and star is none other than Chuck Volpe.
Just hosts. We'll use star loosely, but host. Right. I have a producer. And
do you?
Yeah, they do that stuff.
Well, it's just done so well.
Thank you, Patty.
So I don't know if we have time, but if you could just give us a sentence, what's the worst challenge we have facing us?
Right now, the economy. We need help. We need stimulus. You know, we need to help. They're on life support, in a coma, effectively. A lot of small business. They're the drivers of this economy.
Okay.
And we need to get them help. That's it. Number one.
Now, I yielded to Chuck to close the show. So I thank you, as always, for watching. I thank my guest, Chuck Volpe.
My pleasure,
This is a
Patty.
thrill. And till next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay connected. From all of us at ECTV, thank you for watching.